Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today we're talking about how to get your husband to pay attention to you. I'm going to give you 4 ways to bring back the magic from when you first fell in love. My guest, Anna's husband, was ignoring her to the point that he didn't even look up when she walked in the door to their tiny one-room apartment. He even told her she was annoying to talk to on the phone and that he was never going to talk to her on the phone again. And this was when they were newlyweds. But her relationship has come a long, long way since then. And now her husband gives her lots of attention and calls her on his way home from work almost every day. She's going to tell us exactly what she did that attracted her husband's attention again. And then I'll be giving out the award for the worst relationship advice of the week, which just about everybody I meet heard growing up. And you'll see why it's so common and what a bummer it is if you follow it. All that's coming up. But first, let's talk about how to get your husband to pay attention to you. Sometimes it feels like everything else is more important to your husband than you are. Work, the kids, whoever's texting him. Even the dog gets more of his time than you do. You're craving his attention so much it hurts. And yet the whole day passes and the next, and he has barely acknowledged that you exist. It's easy to get resentful and feel unimportant. Him just asking about your day or sitting next to you on the couch would be so simple to do and go such a long way with you. But he doesn't. He won't. I still remember what that was like. It was terrible. And since you can't control anyone except yourself, how do you get him to improve? Well, there are 4 powerful ways to get your man to be attentive. So here's how to solve this painful dynamic. Number 1, consider your feminine gifts. So part of what makes romantic relationships so electrifying is the gender contrast between you. You were attracted to him because of his manliness, and he was attracted to you because of your femininity. And I don't mean just physically feminine. This is not about being sexual. It's not about lip gloss or strappy sandals, although I'm sure he likes that part too. I'm talking about your feminine spirit. It is intensely gratifying when masculine and feminine collide and connect. Remember the magic you felt when that happened? You were bringing your feminine self, maybe without even knowing it, and you were receptive and therefore a powerful magnet to him. That's why you never had to ask for his attention back then. He was fascinated by your emotional brilliance and your softness, so fascinated that he committed to you above everyone else on the planet. He signed up for a lifetime of being around your feminine spirit. If you have since fallen into feeling angry, he can no longer see that irresistible spirit of yours. He misses it as much as you miss his attention, but he doesn't know how to get it back either. I know it doesn't seem like you're choosing anger. It seems like the anger is a response to his neglect, but it's blocking you both from something you very much enjoyed together. You can make a different choice than being mad. You can take off that rusty anger armor and be as shiny as you always were. Your femininity is the key. Secret number 2, find evidence that he does pay attention to you. Ava was convinced that her man didn't love her anymore, and she outlined point after point about this when we spoke, and she had a very solid case against him. And that was the problem. When she thought about him, she was focused on all the things he didn't do. He didn't text her. He hadn't called. He was away and incommunicado. And each one of those things made her mad and disappointed and scared that she was not going to be loved. And there's nothing scarier than feeling you aren't going to be loved. I still remember. So by finding that evidence of him not loving her, she was causing herself to get upset and then angry, which obscured her beautiful feminine spirit, which in turn was proving her right. In other words, she was creating what she focused on, just like we all do. When I suggested that she make a list of the proof that he did love her, she said it was too painful because it wasn't true. But truth is a funny thing. It changes when your perspective changes. When she finally started her list of 22 things that proved her man did love her, she only got to number 14 before she asked, Why didn't you tell me? This would make me feel so much better. That moment, she was pleasantly surprised to get a text from him that started, "Hey, beautiful, what are you up to?" You could chalk it up to coincidence, but I see that kind of thing happen too much to doubt that changing her focus changed her experience. Secret number 3, provide emotional safety. In the heat of your anger, you might want him to hurt. It's just human. When you're angry at him, he knows it. And just like a little boy who's in trouble with the principal, he avoids you to avoid his punishment. It's so immature, I know. But retaliating in anger won't get you the attention you crave. Quite the opposite. He'll go out of his way to avoid the criticism and therefore you. I still remember how hard that was to wrap my brain around. I thought that if I stopped criticizing his neglect, I was giving up on getting the attention I wanted. But my experience has been just the opposite. When I started listening without judging or telling him what to do, he wanted to talk more. And when I smiled as he was leaving and when he came back, instead of scowling and pouting, he came back faster. Maybe you don't feel like you want to smile at him at all. That's okay. You don't have to feel like it to experiment with it. You could just put a smile on the way you do for the receptionist at the dentist. It's not that you're so happy to see her, right? You just smile. I find I feel better when I'm smiling anyway. So the fringe benefit of creating emotional safety for my husband is that I feel happier. Secret number 4 is to use this spouse fulfilling prophecy. Do you find yourself saying things like, "You never pay attention to me"? Besides criticizing him, you are also affirming the outcome you don't want. So what would it hurt to start affirming the outcome you do want? You could say to him and to yourself, "I love how attentive you are to me," or "I appreciate you giving me so much attention," or "I'm so lucky to have an attentive husband." Now, saying those things, that might seem scary or uncomfortable at first because you're so used to focusing on the negative outcome. You might feel like you're just leaving reality. But since you're not enjoying the reality that much, why not leave it in favor of having the attention you crave and deserve? Changing my life for the better usually does feel scary. It feels uncomfortable, but it's also been exhilarating to have a husband who seeks my company and hurries home just to give me his attention. If I can create that kind of relationship, and my guest Anna can, and she's going to tell us how, then you can too. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest, Anna, was still a newlywed when she realized her husband was so distant that he didn't even look up when she walked in the door to their tiny studio apartment. Trying to get his attention and affection was so difficult and painful, she wondered if she would ever have the connection she thought she'd signed up for. And then Anna made a game-changing decision that not only made her husband seek out her company and become more physically affectionate, it also helped them triumphantly navigate through a challenge that tears many marriages apart. She's going to tell us exactly how she pulled off this miracle. Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, Anna. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here and be speaking with you.
So take us back to the very beginning, to the bad old days when you were feeling so alone in your marriage. What was going on?
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, like you mentioned, when my husband and I were newlyweds, we were living in a studio apartment, which of course, being such close quarters can be a challenge anyway. But my husband dealt with that by just building up walls around himself. And I would come home and like you said, he wouldn't even look up. He wouldn't acknowledge me. At night, he would just sit on the couch watching TV, and we just really didn't have any of that closeness that I had hoped to have. And so I was Googling and I came across your program, and I'm just so, so grateful for that.
Yeah. So, and before we get to all the good stuff that you created
Yeah.
after you found that,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, was there a moment where you thought, wow, I can't go on like this? Or tell us what that was like. Like, what had you were seeking out some help. So what had you
Yeah.
decide to do that?
I think I was just so lonely, and it was hard being, spending so much time in literally the same room and yet feeling so distant. And so when I was looking for help and then I came across this program, I immediately got the ebook so that I could just read it, in privately, and started implementing some of the ideas. And specifically, my husband and I, we just weren't like chatting a lot. We weren't really talking. So I just used any opportunity that we did speak to make sure to express a gratitude. So I think that just those little things started to build a foundation. And then at the same time, I started thinking about my self-care, which that's such a buzzword these days, but I think actually focusing on that and making sure I was doing them daily, like you suggested, made a big difference.
And so, if you when you just go back in time, and obviously there wasn't a whole lot of conversation
Yeah.
going on between the two of you, so you were having to take every opportunity that you had to use the skills when you were communicating, and so it sounds like the first thing you did was use some more gratitude. How did he respond?
Well, I think at first he didn't really respond. So it was really kind of building that up and not being discouraged because, I would express a gratitude, but sometimes then when he would speak to me, it would still be sharp or short, or critical. And I think he was just, under stress and we just didn't have the intimacy and it just was coming out in our interactions. And
Mm.
then gradually, I think he just started feeling more positive about our interactions. And I think, we had stopped talking on the phone. That was one of the things is, he had told me that I was very annoying to talk to on the phone and that he never wanted to talk to me on the phone again, which is like
Ouch.
such a heartbreaking thing to hear from someone that you love and your husband. I'm like, forever? You'll never talk to me on the phone again? And, so then I stopped trying to have conversations with him on the phone. And instead, I would just send him a funny little meme or something positive or a gratitude, just something short. So then when he saw me, he would have kind of a positive association with me. And I just think those little things really help to build a foundation where then eventually, he would approach me to have like an actual conversation or share something about his day. And because I was having self-care, I wasn't as desperate. I was also starting to feel fulfilled just in my own life.
Mm. Was there a moment when you said, "Wow, this really seems to be working"?
Oh gosh, I need to think back because there are so many milestones, but right in the beginning, I think there were things like because we were in a studio apartment, so there's no walls, and anytime someone has light on, everyone has light on. Those kind of things. Um, I would go and I would sit in the bathtub, and I would sit in the bathroom because there was a door, and I could have the light on and read or whatever.
So
Certainly.
you're not even taking a bath. You just are in the
Yeah, no,
bathtub
I
for
just was
refuge.
sitting there.
I
Yeah,
love it.
because he would get mad at me if I turned on a light to read. So it was like, okay, and I just was like, I just didn't have the energy to like, fight back against this. And I just made me feel terrible to be like resigned to sitting in the dark. So I was like, I'm just going to go in the bathroom. So I just started going in there. And I remember one time he sought me out. He came to the bathroom door and he was like, "Hey, babe, you okay? You want to have dinner?" I was like, "Oh, okay." And that was a turning around because he came to me,
Oh, I
which,
love that. Yeah, that must have been an
yeah,
amazing feeling from him
yeah,
avoiding you and saying he's never going to talk to you on the phone to seeking
hmm,
out your company, even though you were trying to be considerate by having this light on just by yourself. I love that.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and looking back, what would you say to your old self? Like if you could travel back in time and just say something to her, like, what do you know now that you think maybe would have been helpful to hear back then?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the number one thing I would say is to be patient, because I think I do see people using, these principles and our skills and wanting to see changes quickly. And I think that being patient and just focusing on self-care was the best thing. And so I think that's what I would tell myself is don't worry about him. Just what do you like? Because I think the biggest thing I got out of this is that I got to know myself better and discover my own interests and really, start to indulge in those. And
Mm,
I think that was so important for me as part of
mm,
my journey. And then that's what really attracted him back to me. He saw me doing things that I loved and he wanted to be a part of it.
Well, I love that. And I understand you used the skills. You had a challenge more recently come up in your relationship. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So we decided that we wanted to have a baby. And then we tried for a couple years. And unfortunately, I was diagnosed with being infertile, which was just so hard to hear. Number one, because, we wanted to have a baby and this made it sound like maybe we wouldn't be able to, or maybe it would be challenging. And also because I've seen so many of my friends, so many couples go through this journey and just have their marriages fall apart or get divorced while trying to have a kid. Like, I can't even believe how many people I have in my life who the fertility journey was what broke their marriage. So I was very concerned about that and
Mm,
very worried about that.
yeah. And so how did you, I mean, well, tell us the whole story. What happened?
Yeah. So obviously, my first thing was to think about like the skills that had helped me through so many challenges in my marriage already. And so when the doctor told me that they thought I should get testing, maybe get IVF, try that, which, of course, is not always successful, and then that my husband should get tests, I started thinking about that. And I came home and told him what the doctor had said he should do. And my husband was not interested in getting these tests and felt that he was fine and he was fertile. And of course, it brings in so many questions of, his masculinity and what it means to be a man and a father. And I just felt like it was a minefield. And, I just was thinking about how I couldn't control him to make him go get these tests. So that was a losing battle. And then when I really thought about my own desires, I realized that I also was not ready to go down that route yet, that I wanted to try some natural things first, give it another year. So I had, regularly been keeping up with the skills by writing down, daily or weekly gratitudes, desires, spouse fulfilling prophecies. So I kind of just kept doing that, and I noticed what some of my desires were. And one was to, try acupuncture for fertility. I'd had some friends who had had luck with that, so I wanted to try that. I wanted to adopt a kitten. I wanted to go on a trip to Scotland. I wanted to take singing lessons. I wanted to run a 10K in under an hour. And I just had a whole list of like fun things that I wanted to do or self-care things that I wanted to do. And so I kind of would mention those to my husband, and he was on board with some of them and not as on board with others, like the kitten. But wouldn't you know, I got all my desires. So
Oh, I love
I
that
have a
list.
cute
What a
little
great
kitten
list.
cuddled up to me right now.
Oh, and you've got a 10K in under an hour time for you too. That's
I did, yes. So yeah, I joined the local track team and I did that. Went on a lot of runs throughout the year and just kind of really indulged these different things that I wanted to do. And I think as far as my husband, I had these spouse fulfilling prophecies which were that I trusted him, that I knew he wanted to have a child. I knew that he loved me. So I didn't have to go down this rabbit hole. Needless, what does NET stand for?
Yeah, needless emotional turmoil. Yeah.
Yes. That I didn't have to go down that road. I could know, like, my husband loves me. He also wants to be a parent. If it comes to the point that we have to get these tests, he will do it. Those kind of things. So I could kind of just put that stuff aside and focus on myself, what I could control and what I wanted to do, and make this a period of kind of growth and self-discovery instead of turmoil.
Was there ever, because I can imagine with that kind of stress, there could be some fights or arguments or just tense conversations about him maybe getting this test. So did that happen?
It didn't, because I think I just knew from experience that I couldn't control him. And I wanted to save that until a point when I felt like it really was necessary. I just felt like the priority right now was for me to just do everything I could do on my end to make sure that I was good. And then I knew that if we really needed it, he could also do that. And I think, there were moments of resentment where I was like, oh, I'm doing all these things. I did start going to acupuncture and changing my diet. And I did like daily monitoring of my fertility and ovulation schedules and temperatures and things. And there were moments where I was like, I'm doing all of this stuff and he's not. But at the same time, he just felt so strongly that he would be okay. And I felt like I needed to trust him that was true, that he was good.
That is impressive, Anna. I really appreciate hearing how you kept that focus, because I think it'd be pretty easy to choose a different focus, but you chose your focus very carefully and productively so that you got this kitten and this trip to Scotland and all this other stuff. So what happened?
Yeah. Well, I did want to mention with all the monitoring, you can hear that there is like stress in the process. Yes. And that another thing that you have suggested in the past is really leaning on your female friends. And so they were my outlet for a lot of that. They were the ones that I would look at my graphs with and discuss different techniques and stuff, so that with my husband, things could stay fun and spontaneous and lighthearted. And it, I think for a lot of my friends who dealt with infertility, sex really became a chore, and intimacy became a chore. And I was really grateful that I had, these friends that could take the burden of that. And then my relationship with my husband could stay fun.
I love that. So it didn't get to become a chore at your house.
Right. Yeah. So that was good. And I think having him still feel like everything is fun and lighthearted also made me genuinely feel like it was too, because he didn't have that energy. I could come home and it could be like, oh, we're good. And besides, I was doing all these fun things. So, when we would talk about the different things, or, for a while, our focus was on acclimating the kitten to our home. We're planning our trip to Scotland. We had never traveled internationally. Like, all of these things were on my bucket list. They weren't just normal things. They were a big deal for us. And so, when we came back from Scotland, it turned out I was pregnant.
No way. See,
yeah.
What? Wait, so you were doing the temperature taking, you were doing, and then you did the diet, but you never did get tested?
No, we didn't have to. I think, I can't really say, scientifically but I can only feel that all of this positive energy helped. I think my body was relaxed. We were relaxed. We were having fun. And then I think acupuncture, there's a lot of research that it really helps. So I'm really glad that my husband let me kind of indulge that. And I don't know. But, I mean, part of it, I did start thinking with all of this that if I had to go through the testing, the IVF, I think we would have been fine because at that point we had such a good foundation, and such a good start to this journey.
Yeah.
But gosh, yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, we were absolutely shocked when we saw that pregnancy test. Absolutely shocked.
That must have been a magical moment to see.
It was. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah. Yeah. I was just shaking and we were crying and we couldn't believe it. And we're just so grateful.
Wow. Well, and what is your relationship like now?
Well, it's good. We have a 7-week-old baby. So everything is pretty busy.
I bet it is. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. But I think my next time I talk to you will be on using the skills with an infant, in your marriage, because I have also now really started implementing them, expressing so many gratitudes to my husband when he does something with the baby, trusting him to do things with the baby. Because I think having a young child is another really difficult point in a lot of marriages. And yes. I think, using these skills, we're going to be able to make it be another positive part of our journey, which is amazing.
So this is the next level of the video game that you're playing with the baby, yes. Right? And trusting your husband with the baby. So yeah. I love that. And it sounds like you are able to find the ways that he's showing up as a good dad and focus on that.
Yes. Yep.
All right. And so all this from a man who wouldn't even look up at you and didn't ever want to talk to you on the phone. Do you guys talk on the phone now?
Now, oh my gosh, he'll call me on his way home from work and just talk to me for the 45 minutes before he arrives at home.
So he wants to talk to you all the time, it sounds like.
Yeah.
What a transformation. Anna,
I know.
So impressive. So tell us, so there's a woman listening who's maybe she's dealing with infertility, or she's in a kind of a cold war where her husband doesn't talk to her. So what's a tip for her if she wants to create this beautiful, happy family where I can just hear the joy emanating from you? Where do you suggest she start? What should she do?
Well, I really feel like the most important thing is writing daily gratitudes, just as many as you can specifically about your husband, even if they are kind of ridiculous, like, just that he's there, or he likes a TV show that you like, or, that he came home in the evening, or just anything, they don't have to be like, oh, he brought me flowers, or he did this, or he did that. Just something like, I like his eyebrows. Just any gratitude you can think of, anything that you feel good about your husband, about your life, because I think that it really does change the way that you see the world. I remember saying to you earlier in my journey that I wish that I had a brain scan from before I did the skills and then after I implemented the skills, because I just feel like it's changed the whole way that my brain interacts with the world, and that I just see things a lot more positively. So I think that's just such an important first step.
Well, and I love that so much. And I want to just ask you, because you've shared some really personal things with us, and I want to let the listeners know Anna's not your real name, because we just really value privacy around here so much. But you've shared very, very personally, very vulnerably about the challenges in your marriage and how you overcame them. And I just wonder, what makes you willing to share this kind of thing?
I just really want other women in this position to see that there is hope, that there can be joy in your life again, that you can have a positive relationship with your husband, that you don't need to go back out on the dating scene and deal with, all these apps and different people, that, the person that you loved and that you loved before can be the person that you still love in the future, and that you can really create a wonderful life together. I just want to give them hope.
Well, Anna, you are certainly proof of that. It's very inspiring to hear all that you've created. It sounds like you have just a beautiful family. that is such a source of strength in the whole world, right? We all depend on strong families, and that's something that you've made. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure to get to hear your story.
Thank you.
If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that's got me really annoyed this week is something I heard growing up. And you probably did too, because it's conventional wisdom that as a woman, you never want to have to depend on a man. Did you ever hear that one? The message was that it's super important to be independent. Get a career where you can support yourself financially. Be happy being alone and learn how to fix things yourself. Otherwise, you'll be at the mercy of a man who might leave you with all the bills and no money, or you'd have to put up with his drinking and his abuse. And the message so many of us heard is that it's dangerous to depend on a man. And I got the message, and I got an education, made plans to have a career where I would be self-sufficient. And then I fell in love with my husband and decided to get married, as lots of us do, because it's such a pleasure to fall in love. We're made to do that. But I carried that independence training into our marriage. And then I was surprised and upset when I felt like we were just roommates instead of a husband and wife. But of course, when you're afraid to rely on someone else and you aren't vulnerable or receptive, that's what happens. I know that now. And it turns out risk is an essential part of love. Trusting a man is essential to feeling loved and taken care of and special. And doing everything myself and trying to make sure I was pulling my own weight all the time was exhausting, and it hurt the intimacy. So today my goal isn't to be independent. I'd rather be interdependent with my husband. That means I'm receptive to him doing things for me, which contributes to our connection, to our intimacy in a way that being a self-sufficient island never did. I'm willing to let him take care of me. I'm willing to rely on him. And at times, that has felt incredibly scary. And I've learned that having the connection I crave requires courage. Today, I'm proud that I've gotten so much better at trusting my husband, at depending on a man. And for those reasons, the advice that you should never have to depend on a man is the worst relationship advice I've heard all week. Be sure to listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week is all about what to do when your husband doesn't love you. It's time for a little fun, because having fun is so important. Today's fun fact is that my non-alcoholic drink of choice is,